Hey, listen, I have Reuben Costin here. He is pouring into the community of pitchers out there, the young people out there that are chasing their dreams. Reuben, let's just start there, buddy. Why did you start kind of pouring back into the youth? What made you get into this line of work?
Working with younger guys has kind of helped me solidify what I know and what I know to be true to help people get better, as well as just the really rewarding part of seeing a kid go from, you know, maybe he's like, throwing 50 miles an hour, and in a year, you get him to like 65, and just seeing that growth in the kid and how much more like confidence he has in his overall enjoyment for the game.
Yeah, so you're still pitching now. You're a current pitcher right now, and you're finding the time to work with pitchers.
Yeah. So what I do is I'm still a college student. I'm going into my fifth year of playing baseball. But what I do is this kind of like the last couple months, really, I've started to work with younger guys and kind of take them through a like a remote program. So I'm working with guys. Some of them are, I'm from Virginia, so some of them are from Virginia. Some of them are out in Texas, other states like that. So I'm working with a couple guys from all over. But I'm, having these one-on-one discussions with them, texting them back and forth all the time. I'm creating programs for them.
As a current pitcher and essentially as a pitching coach, how has that helped you become a better pitcher yourself?
Yeah. So the thing that I've kind of found with pitching the last couple of years, it's very trial and error. So every guy is going to be different, and I think having the experience of me being able to do something and test, whatever movement or pattern I'm trying to create, training drill, whatever, and I can test it in multiple different ways. I think it gives me a lot of experience. Having the multiple different angles to teach a kid has just been really helpful. When kids come to me with specific issues or I see something in their delivery, I can practice that problem and say, what do I need to do to kind of
Yeah.
fix this for myself, and then take that, apply it to the kid and say, okay, this is what I've taken from the problem. I think this is going to help you.
I think just being resourceful and understanding that everybody is different and leg kicks are different. What is the number one flaw you see in the youth pitchers?
The biggest thing that I kind of see is the back leg and the mechanics and movement patterns of the back leg as guys kind of move down the mound in their drift, right? It's interesting because I'll come across some kids, they'll be like no load into the back hip. I think like 70% of guys, it's not something that they're going to have come to them naturally. In my mind, what I like to see is guys kind of keep their shin or their knee kind of relatively over their foot, right? Their shin is, about vertical as they're kind of starting to move down the mound. A big problem that I see is a lot of guys, their knee, if they're a left-handed pitcher, their knee will leak towards first base. If they're a right-handed pitcher, their back knee will leak towards third base. So kind of keeping that back leg in line with the body, not really leaking forward, not really leaking back, right? And then creating some flexion in that back leg as they're moving down the mound. So their leg isn't completely straight, right? But that knee is bent. They're into their glutes, they're kind of into their, hamstring a little bit, just feel wise. Once they kind of start to move down the mound, you kind of see that the application of force on the ground, that's when we're going to see the legs start to rotate, holding that flexion down the mound and kind of having that initial push to really rotate the body and get the hips moving. I've had lessons where, we'll be trying to get just like 3 pitches on the radar just to like see where we are. He'll do his normal delivery, we'll throw, it'll be, 70 miles an hour, right? And then I'll tell the kid, like literally just think about sitting as deep into that back leg as possible. It might feel awkward, it might feel unbalanced, it might not feel good, but just sit as deep in that back leg as you can and continue your delivery. And usually you see the kid throw, 2-3 miles an hour. And it's a big difference. And I think kind of doing that helps them understand of like, I'm missing out so much of what my body can produce.
More than any other sport, baseball, I see kids crumbling. Let's talk about mindset. Do you have any of these kids that come to you and maybe their dad are saying, I don't know how to fix his mind. How does he get over that next pitch? Or how does he get to that next pitch and forget about the ones in the past? Have you had any opportunities to work with kids on mindset?
You need to like instill that long-term mindset of, hey, like you lost this 11U game. At the end of the day, it's like it's 11U. Where do we want to
Yeah.
be in 5, 6, 7 years? What we do building up to that point is really going to matter rather than the one mistake we made here. So you're going to make tons and tons of mistakes and errors, and some of them are going to be really bad and you're going to be really embarrassed about them. Some of them are going to be small that you're not even going to realize are mistakes. But I think just having that mindset of I'm always training for next year. When I talk to parents of kids that I'm working with, don't put so much pressure on make the best performances you can in these 10, 11, 13U tournaments, games, whatever, because more than likely your kid's goal is to play in high school, to play in college. So what you kind of
Yeah.
do at the 11, 12U, how you perform, what your team does, it doesn't really matter.
As my son has gotten older, allowing him to kind of process those thoughts by himself and giving him time. As dads, we want to be as helpful as we can. So we're sitting there screaming through the fence, make sure you're sitting in that back leg, lock your eyes on the catcher, you know, uh, throw strikes, just throw strikes. And the poor kid's up there saying, damn, dude, I'm trying to throw strikes. I'm not trying to not throw strikes. As a youngster pitching yourself, did you kind of go through that same thing? And kind of what were your thoughts as a young pitcher?
I'm in college and I still see that, like I'm seeing, 21, 22-year-old grown men get yelled at by their father, from the stands or from the outfield, whatever. You still see it. Um, and I think, from my experience, and I've seen that from ever since I was little all the way through college, and I've seen it so many times. And, not once have I ever seen a kid who's been in that situation ever succeed. It kind of just tears the kid down, confidence wise, and you just see these kids get in their head. And I think it just really, really hurts them, right? Because you can go to,
Yeah.
practice and things like that, or have these lessons, and, a kid's not doing what he's doing, in the lessons, and the parents are getting on him about it. But I think a kid needs to make those own adjustments up here first before he physically makes them himself in practice, in games. Is these kids will go and they'll play a game, and as soon as they get in the car, you know usually their dad, but their parents are asking them, why'd you do this, why'd you do this, why weren't you doing this, we've been working on this all week, why were you not doing it? And I think just having that time of saying, okay, it's been an hour, 2 hours after the game, now let me go talk to my kid and said, hey, what were you feeling out there? you know what went wrong for you? Instead of me as a parent saying, hey, this is what went wrong. I think kind of like you said, allowing kids to kind of figure it out
Yeah.
themselves, having the time to process it, I think is really beneficial for them. In my career, it has been like setback after setback after setback. And my college career has gone completely different than whatever I thought it would be. I committed to play, Division I baseball out of high school. I was there for 1 year, and then going into my fifth year now, I'm at a D3 school where we just won 3 games last year. So like my career has gone completely different, but I'm still here trying to better myself, and I'm at the
Yeah.
point now where it's like getting close to pro ball and having at least opportunities to get looks into pro ball. So I think just
Yeah.
having a mindset of I've failed here, here, and here. That doesn't mean I can't succeed here, here, and here.
We talk about failure being an opportunity where it allows you to be creative, and without failure sometimes you don't get to be creative.
And even if you fail miserably, just continuing to get up and try again, I think is the best mindset and the best skill you can have in this game, because it's very few guys who will be successful through high school, be successful through college, get drafted, be successful through the minor leagues, be successful in pro ball. It's very few guys who will kind of have that, and 99% of guys are going to face some setback to where
Yeah.
they're looking at their career ending, whether it's injury or a team just says you're too old, you're done, you're not good enough. There's just so many setbacks that guys face, And I think just having the ability to say, okay, and then just move on and continue to try, I think is the best skill a pitcher, a baseball player, anybody can have going into anything. So I think for like younger guys, when it comes to like recovery and things like that, I think the best thing is just like to do nothing. I think giving the body the ability to just rest. And that, that doesn't really mean like just sitting on your couch eating potato chips or whatever, but like walking, getting blood flow, right? Throwing a football around, throwing a frisbee around, um, you know, going out and playing, flag football or wiffle ball with your friends or something. I think it's, you know, it might not seem like recovery, but those are some things that you can do to just get the body moving, get back into those like good ranges of motion, get muscles moving, use different muscles that your body
Yeah.
doesn't normally use during pitching, which is why I always tell people is, especially like off season, is just like pick up a football and just throw, or like pick up basketball. Try to get your friends to play once, twice a week, and just
Yeah.
play pickup and just do different things. And I think as a young guy, you're gonna stay healthy as long as you're getting your sleep, you're eating the right food, you're drinking water. I think you're gonna recover as any young kid should recover.
What's your mindset of kids going, essentially playing year round?
So if I was a coach, if I was a coach of, say, I had a travel ball team, right? I would say, okay, instead of doing, 8 tournaments in the spring, we're going to do 4 tournaments, and we're just going to spend some of those weekends where we don't play. We're going to come in the facility 3-4 hours and just practice. And, you're putting less stress on the kid's body and their mind, right? They're not in the sun for 2-3 hours. They're not traveling out of state in different environments for 2-3 days, limiting kind of how much guys really do, especially when they're young. I really do think is better. And again, this kind of goes to my idea of focusing on the long term, where again, it's like you're 11, 12 years old, like you don't need to play in 10 tournaments in one season. It's great that you might win a couple, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. Like you don't really get but so much better during when you play games. I think games should be more of a measure of skill. So
Yeah.
once, twice a month, you get into a tournament, right? But I don't think it should be like tournament every single weekend all the way throughout the year. How some teams and organizations do it, and it's all just practice and development and really working on your skills to, again, hopefully by the time that you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you're a step better than all those guys you're competing with. So when those college coaches pull up to the games, they're looking at you guys who have spent the time developing all the way since back here, right?
Yeah.
And, you're competing against guys who have just been playing over and over again and not really getting that like development piece.
If you had 1 minute to coach, let's just call it a 12-year-old, 1 minute to coach a 12-year-old, what are the top 3 things that you're going to tell them to do to be successful as a pitcher?
I think the 3 things that I would tell them is put pressure on yourself early, think long term, and whatever you want to get out of this, you got to match that with your energy.